Shanti, Shanti, Shanti.
Is it possible to bring about a fundamental change in our behavior? At the core of who we are, a fundamental change. And if so, what's the quickest and easiest way? I'm going to give you two paths. Two different ways. And it depends on how core the behavior is. Some of our behavior is there just by habit. You have a poor association with someone in school who teaches you how to smoke cigarettes. 30 years later, you're still smoking cigarettes. Not a core issue in your psychology. It was just a poor association in school that now has run an addiction of, a chemical addiction in your mind and your brain. One type of behavior. Another type of behavior. People who beat, or even if not horribly beat, hit a little bit, slap, hit people, their family, usually their spouses, their children. Okay? Other end of the spectrum. It's not a behavior that I picked up on the playground. It's not a behavior I picked up because somebody next to me in school was doing it. It's a behavior that chances are I picked up because it was what was happening in my house when I was a kid. And so there's no way I'm going to be able to stop that behavior until I go in and understand why I'm doing it. And everything in between. So I'm going to give you both ways quickly. One is the behavior that doesn't have a deep, deep emotional core component, that really is just a habit. You crack your knuckles. You bite your fingernails. You twirl your hair. Whatever it may be. Behaviors. Habits. Quickest and best way is literally to set up a system of rewards and punishments with yourself. Interestingly, punishments are much more effective than rewards. And so one way, you can choose your thing, but one thing that they do commonly, depending on how serious the behavior is, get a rubber band, tight rubber band, stick it on your wrist. Every single time you do it, bite your fingernail, crack your knuckle, twirl your hair, smoke a cigarette, pull the rubber band, and it's going to slap back on your wrist, and it hurts. It doesn't hurt enough that you're abusing yourself, but it hurts enough that it's creating a new pathway in your brain that says, biting nails, pain. Cracking knuckles, pain. Twirling hair, pain. Simple, easy, no psychologist required. It doesn't have to be the rubber band. It could be anything. But what's important is it has to be immediate. It's not when I get home later. In order for it to work in the brain, it has to be immediate. So you could walk around with a bottle of ice water, and every time you do it, you could pour the bottle of ice water on your head. You could actually have fun coming up with how you're going to torture yourself in a relatively harmless way to stop the behavior. But then we have other behaviors that come not out of just, I started doing it, now it's become a physical habit or an addiction, but actually something that runs much more core into the sense of who I am. I lie. I hit people. I hurt myself. I keep getting in abusive relationships, one after another. Whatever it is. That's the stuff that unfortunately a rubber band isn't going to work very well. You could still do it, but there's something within you that is stronger than the aversion to pain on your wrist that is pushing you to do it. And in these cases, what it tends to be usually is patterns from our childhood. We got messages when we were young. We learned things when we were young. Whether we learned about how families work, how men treat their wives, how wives treat their husbands, how parents treat their children. The vast majority of people who beat their children were beat as children. Doesn't take a rocket scientist to know that. Not just because it was a habit. Not just because, my mom uses double salt, so I grew up cooking using double salt. But because actually the core of who I am growing up, there was no teaching of how we solve problems. There was no teaching that we learned of how do I deal with anger when I feel angry. Nobody ever taught me how to deal with it. All of the modeling I got was when mom's angry, she beats us. When dad's angry, he beats us. Or they beat each other. So that was really what I learned on a core level. Is the way to deal with your emotions is you take it out on other people. Or drink alcohol, take drugs. Whenever mom was upset, she got drunk. Whenever mom was upset, she took drugs. So it's behaviors we learned, yes, but we learned them on a very, very deep core level. And so in order to change that, we have to actually go within and change the belief that leads to the behavior. So in that particular case, the belief is the way to deal with my emotions is to numb them with alcohol or drugs. Or the way to deal with my emotions is to take them out on other people. But if I were going to go deeper, should I be interested in going deeper in myself, I would go even a little bit deeper and I would say, well, actually what that also means is I don't have the capacity to sit with my anger. I must do something about my anger. See, every time mom got angry, she had to do something. Every time dad got angry, he had to do something. Beat someone, drink something, smoke something. Which means, at the core level, we as human beings are not strong enough, spacious enough, conscious enough, grounded enough, anchored enough to have an emotion and not do something about it. If we had had an entirely different upbringing, if we had been modeled with someone who, came home and said, God, sweetheart, do your homework for a little. I've got to go meditate because something happened and it made me so angry. And so I'm going to go sit and meditate for a while. Well, we'd learn to deal with our emotions in an entirely different way. So you have to change the belief that leads to the behavior. I get involved in abusive relationships one after the other after the other. Why? Well, because on some level I believe I am not worthy of being loved. I believe there's something wrong with me. If I didn't believe there wasn't something wrong with me, I would not keep entering into relationships where I was sure to be injured. So what is that belief? Why do I have that belief? Where did that come from? Whoever told me, verbally or non-verbally, that I didn't deserve to be loved? That I didn't deserve compassion? And only by identifying the source of that belief am I able to fully work to change it. But that doesn't mean you have to spend 20 years in, Freudian psychoanalysis and go back to every day of your childhood or every aspect that you felt when things happened. It just means we have to know why we're behaving in a certain way. Otherwise, what happens is you come to the banks of Ganga, or you go other places, it's New Year's, you take vows over and over again, resolutions. I'm not going to hit my loved ones anymore. I'm not going to drink alcohol anymore to numb myself. I'm not going to take drugs anymore. I'm not going to get involved with people who hurt me anymore. But you're making those decisions with your conscious mind. The conscious mind says no more alcohol, no more drugs, no more abusive relationships with others or with myself. But it's the subconscious that holds the belief. And this is why you go into it anyway. And then this is why the conscious mind gets furious and says, my God, I just vowed. How did I find myself again in this situation? Because you haven't addressed the subconscious belief. And this is where it's important to go there. So the quickest way would be identify what belief is it that's making you do that. Identify where did that belief come from. Because the minute you can do that, usually we're also able to discredit it. If you're able to go back and realize, oh yeah, I believe it because of that situation. Well, with the eyes of an adult, we're able to understand circumstances. Children don't understand circumstances so much. And so that which happens, we take it in as truth, as law, as canon. As adults, we're able to look back and say, oh, well, yeah, of course my mom did this. Of course my dad did that. My God, what would I have done in their case? Look at what they were going through. Look at what they had learned from their parents. And so the belief that they gave us doesn't hold the power anymore. And so we're able to let it go. And then that's when you come here, the last part of your speed healing is you come here and offer that belief to Ganga. Ganga, I've got this belief. You didn't give it to me. God didn't give it to me. It came into my subconscious at some point that I don't deserve love. I don't deserve compassion. Take this belief from me. Take this belief. Let me really know the truth. And as you make that your path, then slowly, slowly the behavior will change as well, because you'll no longer need to act out the pattern.